Welcome to today's webinar, Maximize Safety Improvement with Safety Measurement, brought to you by the Journey to Safety Excellence team at the National Safety Council. Audience, if you have questions during the webinar, you may send them in at any time during the conference and will be answered at the end of the presentation. To ask a question via the web, just select the chat pod that you'll find in the lower left corner of your screen. There you can type it, click send, and your question will be on its way. Now allow me to introduce today's speaker, Dr. Amy Harper. Dr. Harper has been in the field of safety and health for nearly 20 years, having spent the majority of her career developing and delivering products and services in the insurance industry. She has been with the National Safety Council for 4 years and is currently the Journey to Safety Excellence and Workplace Strategy Director. In her role, she oversees the planning, execution, and promotion of the Council's Journey to Safety of Excellence campaign. She is also responsible for crafting the long-term strategy for the future of workplace safety at NSC. So now I'll turn things over to our speaker to tell you more about the Journey to Safety Excellence and the free resources available to you. Dr. Harper?
All right. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. And for some of you, good afternoon. You're digging into your lunch. So thank you for making time out of your day to join us on this webinar on safety measurement. I'd be willing to bet that your company probably already monitors safety somehow, whether it's maybe measuring compliance or audit scores, or many of you do incident frequency and severity rates. Some of you might even do opinion surveys, but nearly all of you probably keep a pulse on safety somehow. How do you know if your company's measuring enough in safety? And what do you do with the data and the results? Are you involving employees and frontline supervisors in discussions about safety? This webinar is going to delve into 3 safety measurement tools that we offer through the Journey to Safety Excellence program. And we're going to explain why you should use each of them and how they can benefit your organization. So let's go ahead and get started with looking at what great organizations do. I think it's helpful to frame, companies that already have success in safety and have great safety records. What do they do? And so at the National Safety Council, we work with a variety of companies. We are in a great place to be able to look across these organizations and capture data about what these companies do that make them great. And so I've created just a short bullet list of things that are common attributes of safety excellence. And number 1 is that they appreciate the value of safety to business success. They know that safety impacts their bottom line. Some of them have even studied how safety impacts their bottom line. But they definitely have leadership that knows the value of safety and knows that good business is good safety and vice versa. And that goes kind of hand in hand with the next bullet, which is the management commitment to safety. We've got to have a leadership team that walks the walk and talks the talk. We can't have safety slogans all around the company, visible to everyone, and then have managers go out there and not wear PPE or not be doing the right things in terms of safety. Third one is worker engagement and safety. I think engagement is one of those buzzwords for 2017. We hear it all the time. It's been ramping up, and we have more and more studies that show that worker engagement in safety leads to better outcomes in safety. It's important because they can buy into safety, and they have to buy into safety when you're trying to implement change. So getting them involved in many ways helps them buy in. And so we're going to talk a little bit about the perception survey today and how that might help with worker engagement. The next bullet is reliable and consistent safety management systems that are integrated into business operations systems. Safety should not be something that is an afterthought when you have new equipment coming in. It's not like, hey, let's install this equipment and then find out that there are safety concerns. It might be in the purchasing process. It's integrated into business operations systems. Safety is baked in. It's not an afterthought. It's not a separate operation. The next bullet is unrelenting focus on identifying and reducing risk. Another buzzword, risk and reducing risk. It's easy to get caught up especially if we're just measuring incident rates and things like that. It's easy to get caught up in sort of chasing that last accident and having our safety program really be defined on what has already happened versus looking upstream to say where does our biggest risk lie and where can we work to improve that risk and reduce it before it becomes an incident. And so companies that perform well on safety really do go upstream and start looking for risk. They analyze their tasks and their work activities and quantify risk and look at all the ways people could get injured. And so they do that. And then finally, we find that great companies use both leading and lagging performance measurements. Now, I know that term is probably new to some of you, so what do we mean by that? Well, if you think about the point in time that an incident happens, so someone gets injured or there's a fatality, everything that happens after that incident is kind of like your lagging performance. If you're measuring the number of incidents, the severity, how much it's costing you, all of that is a lagging performance measurement. If you go a little further upstream, that would be measuring leading performance measurement. So maybe you're measuring near misses. Maybe you're measuring your safety culture somehow to try to identify where there are gaps in your performance. And so we're going to talk a little bit today about really this last bullet and how you can use measurement to really have a safety impact. So I wanted to show you just briefly the model for the Journey to Safety Excellence that has been developed. And in the middle, you'll see 4 pillars. We have leadership and engagement. So these are really following what I just talked about, these common attributes of safety excellence. We put them into 4 pillars: leadership and engagement, safety management systems, risk reduction, and performance measurement. These are the 4 pillars that, if done well and doing many aspects within each of them, you should have increased performance. Along the outside with the arrows is a continuous improvement cycle, and this is not different than any other continuous improvement cycle you may have seen before. But you can start with determining gaps and setting goals in the orange, developing improvement plans, implementing those plans, capturing lessons learned, and then measuring and remeasuring, and that cycle continues. And so today what we're going to talk about is how we do that green arrow really, really well. We need to know where we are now as far as our safety performance. And what metrics you use can often dictate the activities that your safety team ends up taking. And what I mean by that is if you're focused on incident rates and you're focused on looking at the losses that you've already had, you're going to look very closely at what those losses were and create plans for getting them in, making sure that those don't happen again. Whereas if you were looking at risk reduction, you're going to look at tasks that have the highest potential for either frequency or severity. And those might not be the ones that have already caused incidents. So you can definitely look, depending on what you are measuring and what types of metrics you have in place, it drives different activities. And so the question we have to ask ourselves is, where are we now and where do we want to be? Then we have to ask, how do we move forward? So once we actually know what our safety performance is and where we have gaps, how do we actually close those gaps? And then how do we manage improvement and measure our progress over time? We have to know the right frequency with which to do some of these metrics. And I will say as an aside, safety metrics by and large are sort of at a disadvantage right out of the gate when it's compared to operations and quality metrics and production metrics in a company, because those are really metrics that are monitored daily, hourly, and a very high frequency. Whereas safety, you might be monitoring that, if you're lucky, weekly, but definitely monthly, sometimes even quarterly and annually. There's a long tail, especially if you're looking at those lagging indicators. It takes a long time to show improvement in safety. And so by adopting some additional metrics, you're helping yourself, I don't want to say compete with quality and productivity, but you have to have metrics that show improvement and show some of the some of the improvements over time. So these three tools that we're going to talk about today are really couched within what we call the Journey to Safety Excellence program. And this was launched probably about 2.5 years ago, and we are on year 3 right now of having launched this. And these were the original objectives, and I'm just going to breeze through these really quick just so you know kind of what we were doing and why we were doing it. We wanted to educate employers on the importance of safety in the workplace, and we wanted to reach 1 million employees each year over the next 3 years. We wanted to offer compelling evidence demonstrating the value of investing in safety, and we wanted to give people a roadmap. How do we get from point A to point B, and what should I do next? That was something that we thought was very important in the journey model, to be able to show people where they have gaps, which is the next bullet. How do I know where my gaps might be? And then make available some resources for learning once you know where those gaps are, just sort of saying, hey, what's out there to help me with this? And then provide a mechanism for people to ask questions of experts and get technically sound answers. And I'll touch on that very, very briefly at the very end of the presentation. So all of these tools and resources are housed in our Journey website. And some of you may have already registered for the Journey, and maybe that's how you found out about this webinar. Some of you maybe have not registered. So I'm going to touch on this just very briefly again for those that maybe haven't, and talk through the portal. And a lot of the screenshots you're going to see today for the tools are screenshots from the portal, so that'll help you identify where to go and how to do these things that we're going to talk about. So today we're going to focus on the measurement piece of this, but there's also the learn and the engage piece, which we'll touch on very, very briefly at the end. But we have an incident rate calculator tool. We have a safety system self-assessment, which measures your safety management system. And then we have an employee perception survey. So that's going to be our main focus for today. And what these 3 measurement tools help you do in general, here's just like a short list, but we're going to get into each of them and how they benefit you. But doing this and using these 3 tools, it will help you add leading indicators of safety performance to your metric suite. So if you're only doing lagging indicators right now and only tracking incident rates, this will help you add a leading indicator. It can help you take a snapshot of your safety culture and find out, where do you stand right now with employees and their perception of safety in your location. You can assess your safety management system and find out, really how baked in is safety to your organization and the operations. You can calculate and graph incident rates, which is important, and we'll talk about that one first. And then benchmark performance against industry standards. And so we'll talk a little bit too about how each of the 3 tools has a benchmarking component to it. So for those of you that don't know what this looks like, this is our Journey homepage, and it can be found at nsc.org/journey. I'll put that up at the end too, so those of you who want to join for free can do that. So this is our homepage, and what you'll notice is on the right-hand side, under the Journey to Safety Excellence logo is the navigation. So there's a little bit about what is the Journey, and then there's Journey tools. If you want to get to those Journey tools that I'm going to show you, that's the button to click. And then we have the guides and the Ask Us for the learn and the sort of engage piece of everything. So once again, hitting the Journey tools and clicking any of those green bars that show up on that page, you can hit access the assessment, access the survey, and access the calculator, and those will all bring you to this next page, which looks like an eye chart right now because it's a little small, but just wanted to give you the at a glance of what this looks like. It takes you over to a dashboard where all of the tool activities take place. So this is built in our NSC Navigator product, and we have everything on the left side in the upper left quadrant is going to be your safety system assessment and your perception survey. And everything on the right-hand side in the upper right-hand quadrant is going to be your incident rate calculator. And then the graphs along the bottom, we'll talk about those in just a minute. So that's just to kind of orient you how to get to these tools for those of you that are already registered and maybe haven't checked them out, or for those who may register later. So let's start and talk about the incident rate calculator. So why would we want to graph our incident rates? Well, number one is you're probably already capturing some of this info on your OSHA 300 and 300A forms. So you've got some form of this information already available to you. The OSHA forms do not graph anything, so you're not going to pick up the visual of what it is you're capturing. Also, the rates. This calculates rates. The incident rate calculator is baked right into the title. It's a rate calculation. And what it does is it normalizes your data. So, for example, if your company had 41 incidents last year and 46 incidents this year, are you doing worse necessarily? You can't answer that question unless you know like work hours or some other sort of normalizing number to tell you whether or not that really is a worse number, or maybe it's even better if you worked more hours. So that's why we look at rates. The calculation for a rate, and you don't have to know this because the system does it for you automatically, but the calculation is the number of cases, and the number of cases just means the number of incidents that you have, times 200,000 divided by the actual hours worked. And the 200,000 figure in the formula represents the number of hours 100 employees working 40 hours per week, 50 weeks per year would work. And this provides the standard base for calculating incident rates. The total recordable case rate is one of the measures that we have in the incident rate calculator, and it provides a measure of incident frequency. So how often are you having incidents of any type? OSHA says a recordable injury or illness is one that requires medical treatment beyond first aid, as well as one that might cause death, days away from work, restricted work, or transfer to another job, or loss of consciousness. So that's kind of like your definition of recordable. It's on your OSHA 300, so if you need a reference to that, you can certainly look on the OSHA website too and get that definition. The other metric that we look at in the incident rate calculator is the days away from work case rates. And these are really just cases or incidents that involve people being out of work. And so therefore it's a measure of severity. It's one measure of severity. How bad are the incidents that you're having? Are they bad enough for someone to have been out of work for a day or more? And so it's one measure of severity. And then finally, the graphs will provide you some visual inspection of your data. So you can spot some trends. Maybe you have some seasonality, the sort of peaks and some peaks and valleys in your seasons. And then you can look for plateaus. Are you stalling out on improvements? Can you do anything to get beyond that plateau? And so we'll take a look at what some of those are. Just wanted to point out in this next slide, the days away from work case rate. This is an OSHA 300 form. The days away from work would be in column H of your form. So you'd be counting up anything in your form that is a column H. So that's just a quick reminder of where you would find that info. Also, why an incident rate calculator? You want to benchmark your location's performance against your industry standard. Why would you want to do that? Well, number one, management likes to benchmark to find out where they are. How do we compare to competitors? How do we compare to others in the industry? What that can help you do as someone who's responsible for safety is convince management to act on your plan for improvement now. So if you're worse than industry, showing that you are your performance is worse than industry can help them, nudge them along to say, we really need to do something now. Especially if you're a contractor and you have experience modification rates baked in there, and that affects your ability to bid on jobs and bid them competitively. That can definitely help management nudge them along. Also, it can provide evidence that changes in safety have had an impact on your incident frequency or severity. So if your trend is looking like it's downward after you've changed something, maybe you've implemented a new policy or you've made a number of different changes over time, you can see what's happening to your incident rates if you're looking at graphs of your data. And we'll show in a minute how that works. Also, you can gather data showing your company or location is worthy of recognition or replication of success across your organization. So if you're better than industry, or maybe your location stands out among other locations within your organization, maybe you're worthy of recognition. Maybe you should find what you did and replicate that across other locations or others in your industry. If you belong to some type of an association, you can get some recognition or present at a conference and that kind of thing. So there's a lot of things you can do with the data to help identify what's really going on and to help you sort of make the case for why you want to do certain things, or what you've done in safety, what impact it has had, and what success you've had. So first, with this particular tool, and with any tool, any of the three tools, you'll have to add a new location, and it's in the one that's in the upper left-hand corner. It says Add New Location, and it's going to ask you two things. It's going to ask you to name your location, and it's going to ask you for the NAICS industry code. Some of you probably don't know what your industry code is, and there's a search, there's a website listed there where you can do a search for your NAICS code that matches your industry. And your location name, I will just say this. It doesn't have to be a four-walls location. It can be a project, like a construction project. It can be a department within a location. It can be an entire company. You basically determine how to define location. So this is really your tool to use, and if you want to do it based on a department, you want to do 4 departments within, or if you want to look at 5 locations that you're responsible for and enter incident rate data for 5 locations, you can definitely do that using this tool. You just go in and add as many locations as you would like and name them whatever is helpful. I like to say what the name of the company is and maybe the city and state that it's in. But you can do whatever you would like to do to help you remember what you've named that location. If you need to know what your NAICS code is, on your OSHA 300A form, which is your summary, it has in the yellow box there, your NAICS code is usually listed there. So that could be another way to identify what your NAICS code is. So while I'm on this form, you'll notice a number of different circled boxes, and I wanted to just briefly explain sort of what those are and how they might help you enter data into the incident rate calculator. Let's start with the blue box. If you were to add all of those cases up, that's your total number of cases for the year. That's your total number of incidents of any type. So it includes fatalities, it includes cases with days away from work, number of cases with a job transfer or some type of restriction, and total number of other recordable cases. So if you added all those up, that's your total number of cases. In the green, again, that's column H I showed you before in the other form. That's the total number of cases with days away from work. So that's where you would pull that number from. Your yellow box is your NAICS code. And the total hours worked by all employees last year is going to be in the red box. Now, with an incident rate calculator, you're going to want probably monthly numbers. At the very least, you could probably do quarterly and sum them up. I'm not sure how helpful it is just to do an annual number and enter in this OSHA summary information. If you went back maybe 4 to 5 years and entered this in, you might have, sort of a trend. But you need 3 data points to make a trend and to identify what that trend might be. And you can definitely pick up on changes quicker if you're doing it monthly and entering in monthly data. But just wanted to point this out on your form that, somehow someone is tracking that in your organization to be able to fill out this form, which is a requirement annually. So someone has that data. If it's not you, probably your HR or your finance people may have it. So now let's get into entering the incident rate data. When you open up and click that Enter Incident Rate Data, you're going to see the screen that's below. And there's 5 pieces of information you're going to enter. And usually it's by month, although even though it says month end date, you could fake it out and do just like every quarter. You could even try it annually and see how that works. But it's just going to look at that month end date as a data point. So treat that with however you'd like to do your data. So you're going to select the location that you had added in the previous screen. You can also add it here if it's new, and you can just do it here, but I think it's helpful to just think about what you want your location to be named first and foremost. And then you're going to put in the month end date. So you're going to enter in these 5 fields a number of different times. You're going to have 5 fields for every month that you're entering. So you're going to look at the monthly hours worked. You're going to look at your recordable incident count for the month, and you're going to look at your cases with days away from work for that month. And so it's helpful to go back and enter in, I would say, at least the last year of your data. I think it's helpful to look at what has happened, previous to today's date, and then you can do this going forward. I say, enter it quarterly. Take 3 months and enter it at the end of the quarter. That way you don't have to keep remembering to come in here and looking, to enter it every single month. But certainly there are companies that do that. So once you've entered in data, and like I said, I think you'd probably want a good 6 months of data to even run a report. I don't know that you would want less than like 6 data points to run it, although you can run the report anytime. If you just want to check and see that it's working and you have data in there and want to see what it starts looking like after 3 months, you certainly can do that. There's 4 reports that are available. So there's a report for total recordable case rate, as we talked about before, and this calculates your monthly and year-to-date TRC rates for that location. And then you have a report for days away from work case rate. And then you have a benchmark comparison of both of those, the total recordable case rate and the days away from work case rate. And the benchmark comparison is going to use that NAICS code number to benchmark and draw a line through your graph to say this is where the industry is. And it's pulling those numbers from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. I think this is an old screenshot. We definitely have 2015 numbers in there right now. And it's always sort of a year lagging. So in 2017, we get the 2015 numbers in there and so on and so forth. So it is always the most recent BLS numbers that are uploaded into the system. So you'll get the most recent that BLS reports. So let's take a look at an example that I put together. This is the total recordable case rate graph that comes out. And what I had done here is I entered in the past full 3 years of data for 2014, 2015, and 2016. And then I have the first 4 months of 2017 here. So 2014 would be the blue. And just focus on the blue for a second. See what you see there in terms of how high you think that overall trend is, right? It's pretty high. 2015 is in the red. I think overall you could say maybe there's not a whole lot of change between 2014 and 2015. It's really, it's still fairly high. What if I told you that in 2016, starting in January of 2016, this company implemented a change in their safety program? Maybe they implemented some new policy. Maybe they started a safety committee that really ramped up their efforts to involve people in safety. So in 2016, they started something new in safety. And what can you see about those gray bars? You see overall, those gray bars look somewhat lower than the blue and the red. But then look at 2017. And that's where you can see the trend line, the year-to-date line, the blue line that goes across there, those first 4 months. That line shows you, your year-to-date, how you're doing. And so it looks like even with some improvements in 2016, now in 2017, it's really kind of taking hold and showing up in your incident rates. So you can use this as sort of a guide to look at if you've implemented something in a particular time frame. You can see what impact it has had. The other thing this can show you is any seasonality. So you can see in some months you consistently have fewer incidents, recordables, than in other months. And so this can help you do some planning too around vigilance and upping your audits or something in the months that are super high. So like in July, for example, that's a particularly high month. April looks like it was a bad month, previously. So it can help you do a lot of different things, but visualizing your data really helps you ask more questions and helps you then dig for some answers. So not only is this going to graph what you have, it's going to give you the chart down below, and that's going to give you your monthly total recordable case rate data. So it's basically just graphing those data points. So if you wanted to know, what is 2014 December's number, how high did that get, you can see that it was 30.51. So then let me ask you another question on this one. This is your benchmark comparison. So it's the same graph as the one I showed you previously, but now we've got our benchmark line through the graph. That black line is through there. What this will show you is that the benchmark, so previous to implementing something in 2016, you probably had a line above that benchmark, right? You started to bring it down in 2016, and now in 2017, you're seeing the fruits of your efforts come here full circle, and now you're below the benchmark. You're below the industry benchmark. Before, you were way, way above it. And so what this can help you do, too, is just tell the story of what it is you've done as a safety person or someone responsible for safety, or tell the story of your organization and what you've done together collectively. What has the story been, and what was done to help implement these results? And maybe it was a lot of different things. You don't always have to have, a point-in-time change that you can point to. It can just say, keep a track of all the activities that you've done. You usually have to do a business plan or some sort of, accounting for what it is you're doing. Keep that and just say, hey, can I make sense of this graph considering what I did and when I did it? So the benchmark graph can definitely help you. I didn't graph the other ones, the days away from work case rates, but they would look very similar. They're going to be a smaller amount because it's a subset of your total recordables with the days away case rates. So they would look somewhat similar to this, but it would also give you an idea of the severity of those injuries. So the fewer, the better. So that is the incident rate calculator and how you can use it. I will say too, just going back here quickly, if you're a small organization or you're a small location and you're having a lot of zero incidents every month, I'm not sure that this is the tool that you are going to want to use. You can certainly use it to pull your own benchmark and see what your benchmark rate is, put in a few months of data and then pull your benchmark, and then you can see how you're doing. But it's not necessarily going to tell you anything because you have a lot of zeros, and so the bars aren't going to be, showing you anything. So I would say if you have, if you're having zeros and ones in a lot of your months, this may not be exactly helpful for you. But if you're having a good number of incidents, number one, that's not good, but it will at least help you use this tool and, show some data that will help support whatever it is you're trying to do to implement change. So next we've got our safety system assessment. So what does this thing do? Well, first of all, it will help you add a leading indicator of safety performance to your metric suite. So you don't have to rely solely on your incident rates to determine, what the health of your safety program is. This is going to help you identify where your gaps are and where your weaknesses are, and hopefully help you identify those before they become incidents. And it helps you to focus your organization on prevention. not just reaction. And so it's very important that I encourage all the companies to say, do something in the prevention side of the camp each year, not just everything that's putting out previous fires. And I know that's difficult to sort of make that leap because the prevention activities don't always show a direct impact. But hopefully what you can see with the safety system assessment and later with the perception survey is you have other metrics that you can lean on to help you identify what these efforts might be doing before they can be seen in the incident rate calculator and in those trends over time. This is going to assess your safety management system. It benchmarks your location's performance against other organizations. There's about 500 companies that are in the benchmark database. And this is a very stable tool. We've used this tool at the Council for many, many, many years. And so the benchmark that we have is very stable. It doesn't change much over time. I do get the question periodically, do you add new data to the benchmark? We've found that even adding the new data doesn't change the benchmark, so it's very stable. And this tool can be used repeatedly also to gauge improvement. I would say probably every year is probably best, but you could probably do it every 6 months. And I'll show you kind of why that's the case in this next slide. Some of the questions that are asked, and I don't expect us to go through all of these, but these are the types of questions that are asked in the safety system assessment. There are 69 questions, and they're categorized according to the JSE pillar, which is on the left. Remember, we have 4 pillars: leadership and engagement, safety management systems, risk reduction and performance measurement. And then there are program categories that are broken out for each of the pillars. And so this helps us also kind of fine-tune the results that help show you where your gaps are. So maybe your gaps are in training and orientation, or maybe your gaps are in workforce involvement. This will help us identify and pinpoint where you need help. So these are just some sample questions that so let me back up here for just a second and say the person who's filling out this assessment is a self-assessment. The person filling out this self-assessment is the person who would be most knowledgeable about the safety and what's going on in that location. So whether that's you or whether that's maybe a team of people, maybe you want to use this as an exercise in a team meeting and sort of agree on how you rate each of these items. But each of these statements on the right would be rated from a 1 to a 5, 1 being disagree, 5 being agree. And so what this does is it'll calculate, how you've answered this survey. So you can lie to yourself. I will say, if you want to make this look good, you can definitely, up your score here and say you're doing things. But if you're really honest, no one else is looking at this. The results don't get sent anywhere. This is really for you to be able to pinpoint for a location what you're doing well and what you're not doing so well. So answering the 69 questions honestly, and it takes 20 minutes to do it maybe, so just taking 20 minutes can help tremendously in identifying whether you have a good safety management system, maybe you really don't have much of one at all, but you're probably doing some things really well, and you can give yourself credit for that. So how to do the safety system assessment in the portal. So you're going to click Send Link to Safety System Assessment. This is just the way the system is set up. It's going to send you an email that has a link to the survey. It doesn't open up the survey right away here. This is just how it works. So you're going to select the location that you want to do the safety system assessment on, or you can add a new one. And you can see below the email that shows up in your inbox. And it's going to go to the email that you used when you registered for the Journey to Safety Excellence. So it's going to send the email to there. So it's going to tell you, thank you for doing this. It's going to tell you the location in the email so that, when you are hunting down the email 2 weeks later, you can see, oh, this was for the Dallas location. And then you can start the assessment whenever you want to. You can click the Here button or the Here link, the hyperlink within the email. And what that will do is it will open up the safety system assessment. and you will answer the 69 questions, rating each one from 1 to 5. When you're done with that, you submit it, and then what you're going to do to run the report is go back, log in again, and get back to your dashboard and select Report, Assessments and Surveys. In the drop-down, select the location. My Dallas location is what I just did the assessment on, and I'm going to select Safety System Assessment. There's only 2 options in that second drop-down. One is the System Assessment, and the other is the Perception Survey. So you're just going to select the Safety System Assessment. And what you're going to get is this scary tornado-looking type of graph, and it's going to give you these green and yellow and red bars. And what this is the item analysis. So all 69 items that you answered, it's going to give you a percentile score. And the percentile score is how you compared and how you answered the question to those 500 other companies that answered that same question. And so a percentile score of 85 will mean that you scored higher than 85% of the other respondents who answered that question. And so this has kind of got that benchmarking built right into it, and it's going to give you the greens are the things that are scoring, I believe, 75 percentile and above. Those are things you're doing relatively well. Maybe those are things that you could implement at other locations and replicate across locations. They're probably not things that need your attention right away. The red items are things you will want to focus on. Those are things that, according to our benchmark database, you scored less than in the 50th percentile. So those are things that you're going to want to take a really good look at, and the item analysis that comes, you will be able to read the questions, I promise, and you will see kind of what those questions were. Again, you were the one that answered them, and so you will have an idea as to why you answered them that way, but this kind of gives you a roadmap for what you might need to work on and where you might need to focus. And the yellows, certainly you could act on some of those as well. So it gives you this item analysis. But remember that I told you we had the categories and the 4 pillars. This also gives you a bar chart that looks at percentile scores broken out by those groupings. And so for leadership and engagement, you'll see management, leadership, and commitment, motivation, behavior, and attitudes, and workforce involvement. And you can see here, workforce involvement may be something we need to work on, as is system management and communication. And so it'll give you these percentile scores, and again, helps you pinpoint where you might want to spend more time and effort in your safety management system. I think even too, just going through the questions and answering the questions, if you don't know what a safety management system is, looking at those questions will help you understand why it's different than just a safety program or a safety slogan or an incentive program or something like that. It's going to show you just in the questions how safety is sort of baked into your culture and how it's baked into your operations. So that is the safety system assessment. Now, our final tool is the employee perception survey. And what this helps us do is, again, it adds a leading indicator of safety performance to your metric suite. So what we mean by that is, take the safety system assessment we just did. If you did that today and then did that a year from now after you had made some tweaks based on what those red items were that showed up, you would be able to see that you have made some improvement in those items. You might not have as many reds in the tornado-looking type of document. Maybe you have more yellows and greens. So maybe you've eliminated some of those bad items and done things to improve the safety there. So it can help you add this leading indicator to your metric suite, so you can say, listen, we improved here, and this is just some data to help show what we did and how we did it and what impact it had. Now, you can use that in tandem with your incident rate calculator, and of course this perception survey is another mechanism to say, have your employees recognized what you've done in safety? So that's kind of the second bullet here. Is we can gauge whether your changes are even being noticed by the employees. It helps take a baseline snapshot of the safety culture. If you've never measured safety before, this gives you sort of a starting point for improvement over time. But knowing where that data point is important so you can measure the progress and improvement. This is also a benchmarking tool. It benchmarks against other organizations who have done this survey. Again, this survey has been done many, many years by the Council. This version within the Journey to Safety Excellence is a 10-item survey, and we took the 10 items that were most reliable out of a 50-item survey that was done. We use a 50-item survey as a fee-based service, so we took sort of a smaller subset of those questions and made this available for free. But again, very stable questions, very reliable questions, and we made this available to work in a 10-item survey. The other thing you can do with this is compare your location's results. So you don't always have to just do this as a one-off within a location. You can learn by doing this across multiple locations and finding out what's the culture footprint or thumbprint of each location, and how can we replicate the good parts of that culture across our locations, and do we have a common struggle or a common theme that's cropping up across all of our locations. So it's just one of the ways that you can use the tool. So in the portal, again, send a link to the Employee Safety Perception Survey. You're going to select or add a location, and you're going to put in a survey cutoff date. So what happens with the Employee Perception Survey is you act as the administrator of the survey, and you will get an email that has some verbiage in there that you can either forward to employees if you have employees with emails, and that survey cutoff date is going to appear in the email. And you can change it, you can do whatever you need to with it. But I generally say give people 2 to 3 weeks to fill out a survey. You can do a week if you really want people to just do it and not forget about it. But you can put a cutoff date into that email. So you're going to act as the administrator here. If you have, and this is the email that comes. So it's going to say your location, so you can see the Dallas location there. There's a Here button that is hyperlinked to the actual survey itself. And you can forward this email to employees, or if you don't have emails, as many of you don't have emails for your employees, you can use a paper and pencil version. And that paper and pencil version is found once you've logged in to nsc.org/journey, and you go to that tools page and scroll down to find the perception survey section. There's an English and a Spanish version of the paper and pencil version. We do not have a Spanish version online. It's English only online. But if you need to do a paper and pencil version, you're going to enter that data yourself. So once you've actually done that paper and pencil version, you as the administrator gather the forms. They don't have names on them, and you're basically going to come back to this email. You're going to click the Here button, and you're going to have the survey open up. And it's 10 questions, and you're basically going to replicate the answers that were given to you in the paper and pencil version for each of the employees. Hit submit, do the next one. You're going to go back to that email again, click the Here button. So it's a little bit manually intensive, but it gives you a version to do the paper and pencil. It gives you a way to do that even though this is an online survey. So the perception survey is 10 items. We made it super quick and super easy to help employees get in and out and do it very quickly. If it takes 10 minutes, that's probably too long. It probably only takes about 5 to complete it. So once all of the employees start submitting the forms and you've got it out in the field, the survey's floating out there and your cutoff date hasn't come yet, on your dashboard you're going to see in the lower right-hand quadrant there's a count up. And so here you see there's 5 locations, and it gives you the count of surveys that have been completed by location. So if you know that one of your locations has 75 employees and you see that you've gotten 40 responses, that's a pretty good response rate. I would say if you get a 30 to 40% response rate, that's pretty good. For smaller locations, you might want a higher percentage completion rate with the survey, so you might let it run and see if you can get it up to 50%, 70%, something like that. But this allows you to see the count for each location, so you can monitor as the administrator whether you're getting a response. Maybe you need to send another email out to remind people. Maybe you need to set aside or go, sit in the lunchroom and hunt people down and get them to fill out the survey. Whatever you need to do, this will help you monitor the completion of it. When you're ready to run the report, you're going to click the report button again, and you're going to select your location. And now in the second drop down, you're going to select the safety perception survey. Hit submit, and again, you're going to get the green, yellow, and red bars, but you only had 10 questions in this survey, so it's going to give you a percentile score for each of the 10 questions. And the percentile score, again, is a benchmark score against 500 other companies that have done the survey, and the 500 companies constitute, lots and lots and lots of employees, so many more employees than locations. And so it'll give you this idea of what you're doing well by item and what you might need to work on. So again, what do you do with these results? Well, first of all, the survey itself helps engage employees. You're asking their opinion on something. You're asking them to help you identify how the culture is in the organization. With these results, I find it helpful to get maybe the safety team or maybe a special task force together to review the results here and just sort of talk through, well, why did we get this last item? Why do you think we scored so low on it? Employees believing that their actions can protect coworkers. What's behind that? Why do you think people answered it that way? And so you can get a group of folks together to really sort of problem solve and come up with ideas on what you can do better. If it's something like management setting a positive safety example that scores low, for example, that would be something completely different. Maybe you want to get your management team together and say, this scored really low, what's up? What are we not doing out there? And so I think it's very revealing, the results in and of themselves, which you will be the one to see as the administrator, but then sharing those results out and sort of being transparent. Again, you've asked employees for their input. They need to know what's being done as a result of the survey to sort of reinforce their engagement and even help participate in the problem solving and the eventual sort of action planning that may go on as a result of the survey. I would consider doing this survey once a year. I'm not sure I would do it more often than that, but again, if this is sort of your baseline thumbprint of your culture for this location, you can resurvey in a year and see if you've had any impact and change. And hopefully you're doing something to help impact those lower numbers in that interim. This other slide here just tells what you can do to review across locations. So you kind of get these thumbprints with all like 3 locations or even more, and you can kind of put them side by side to say, what do we have that's a constant theme here? The protecting coworkers, was something that 2 of the locations struggled with. What do we see that's consistently good? Or do they all look completely different? Just kind of looking at that data and poring over it can help you identify among the locations what's really going on and what the feeling is overall at those 3 locations. So that's just a little bit about the perception survey. So now that you've done perhaps these 3 tools and you've gotten some information and you've pinpointed, here's where I need some help. Well, where do you find some help? And so I promised you a little peek at what we call the Journey Guides. And this is some learning resources. This is just, again, our way of kind of pulling together resources that are both NSC resources and beyond. So we might have OSHA things in here. We might reference in construction, CPWR, other reputable institutions that put good information out about safety. And so what you'll notice at the top, where it says Journey Guides, underneath there's the green bar and it says Basics, Leadership, SMS, Risk Reduction, and Performance Measurement. These are tabs, and if you click on different tabs, it'll take you to a different subset of information. And so under Risk Reduction, there's a number of subtopics, Here you'll see chemical storage and handling. You'll see construction risks across those green bars. And there's more that go down. You just keep scrolling down. And then there's different articles, or maybe there's training or reference information, white papers. We have, helpful tools that you can print out. There's just different things in each of the subtopics. So you can peruse those and see if there's something there that will help you. There's also a search button on the website. You can always type in something there and see what comes up. So the journey guides would be one way for you to find some help for things that you would need to help you. This is just sort of an in-depth look if you were to click on an article. Maybe it's a Safety and Health magazine article that can help, with a particular topic. The other feature, once you've joined the journey, is you have the ability to ask a question of one of our consultants. We can, and you have to be a joiner for this, and it's under the Ask Us button on the right-hand side, the right navigation there, and it allows you to just ask us a question. Maybe you have a particular safety question and you just need another pair of eyes on it. You need some expert advice on something. You can use that email, and we will filter that out to our consultants, and sometimes some other folks that might be outside experts. But we just ask them to provide you with feedback, and we try to get you an answer within 48 hours. You can also use our customer service line. Obviously, if you need to get a hold of somebody quickly and get a quick answer, you can always call the customer service line, and they can try to get you an answer there. The library is also another feature. If you are an NSC member, the NSC library is an excellent resource if you need answers or just need some background research on something, or how did other companies do X, Y, Z? Lots of questions get asked to the library, and you'd be surprised what they can come up with to get to you for help. So that is the Ask Us feature. And I just want to end here by looking at just some brief numbers here in the journey. We've got 5,800 total web registrants covering 2.7 million workers. 63% of them are non-NSC members. You do not have to be a member to join the journey. This is a free resource for anyone to use. So if you like what you saw today, you can certainly go on to nsc.org/journey and register for free today. 23% are from organizations in smaller companies, 100 or fewer employees. 36% are in non-safety job roles. So all of you HR folks out there or operations folks who are on the line, you're in good company. We see more and more with the shortage of safety professionals. Other people are being tasked with safety roles and safety job responsibilities, but they may be not formally trained in safety. So you're in good company there. And if you are newer to safety, you're also in good company. 38% have 5 or fewer years experience, and 58% with 10 or fewer years in safety. So that's just a little bit. I know we're getting up to the top of the hour. I will put this slide up here. This is Join for Free at nsc.org/journey. If you register before May 31st, we have a weekly drawing of a $50 gift card for you. So if you want to join, you can do that. And now I think we'll just take some questions. If anyone has questions, you can use the chat feature, and I will try to answer some of these questions. Will the presentation be mailed or made available? Yes, it will be. You will get a replay of this. You'll get a webinar replay in an email. If you would like, you can also contact me at amy.harper@nsc.org, and I would be happy to provide the presentation to you in a PDF. Can you repeat where to enter monthly versus annually? You can use the incident rate calculator to enter monthly data. That's kind of how it's designed, is to enter monthly data. Your annual, you can put in the annual data in the incident rate calculator, but you'd probably want to have at least 3 data points, so 3 years of data, to be able to get any type of graph. And you can pull the annual data right off of your previous OSHA summary logs, your OSHA 300As. So that is that's in the incident rate calculator. The next question, can a site or company use a combination of both online and paper perception surveys? Yes, absolutely. I had someone yesterday, in fact, just call and say, most of my employees are, they have emails, but I have one that just can't. I would say, that's, if you have a handful that are paper and pencil, it doesn't really matter. If you have just one, you got to make sure that they feel comfortable giving you, handing a piece of paper to you, because it's kind of identifying them as having answered it. But yes, absolutely, you can do both. It's just saving you some paperwork to do the online ones online, and the paper ones are the ones you'll have to enter yourself. Let's see, the next question, can more than one person take the survey for a location and roll it up into one set of results? I don't know if you're talking about the perception survey. I'm going to assume you're talking about the safety system assessment. So the perception survey, yes, more than one person does take it. For the assessment itself, you can have multiple people take it, but it will not roll it up into one set of results. You would have to, each person complete the survey on their own and print out the results, and then you'd have to kind of talk about what results you found separately. Let's see. I'm having a hard time finding my NAICS number. I work for a city government. Any suggestions on what my number might be? Go to that NAICS /search. That should be able to pull up what a government NAICS code is. Is the benchmark data based on NAICS for the perception survey and the assessment? Good question. No, it is not. So your NAICS code is really only pulling the BLS data associated with your incident rate calculator. So the perception survey and the safety system assessment right now, we do not have, we don't have that broken out by industry. So that's a good question, a good clarification. Is there a support rep that we can call to help walk through filling out the incident reporting and using that tool? Yes, absolutely. You can contact me directly, or you can use the Ask Us feature of the Journey. So the Ask Us button in the Journey website. Okay. I think I've answered a good number of these questions. I think there's one here coming in. Do you have experience with looking at a weighting on severity using number of days away from work or days restricted? This tool will not look at that. It's really just looking at number of days away from work. Days restricted, you can run the calculation yourself to see how that changes, because you're just adding those two columns in your OSHA log, because there's a separate column for days away from work and a separate column for days restricted. You could apply a weighting to that, and I mean, really you can get creative with how you look at your incident rates, and if your company has a reason to say you want to weight one more than the other, you can definitely do that. The BLS numbers are straight up, so they're not going to have any weighting in them, but that's a good question as well. So, Chris, I think that's all the questions. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you all for joining the webinar today, and we do appreciate your attention and participation in the event. A recording of this webinar will be available at nsc.org/journey in a few days. Thanks again for attending, and have a great day, everyone.